Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom lived a princess named Urenna. She was the jewel of the land, admired for her beauty, grace, kindness, wisdom, and especially her humility. She had sparkling eyes, hair like flowing silk, and a presence so graceful that everyone adored her. People came from far and near just to catch a glimpse of her. Yet, there was one thing missing. Princess Urenna had never laughed or smiled, not once since she was a baby. No matter the jesters' jokes, no matter the grand performances of dancers or storytellers, her lips never curled into a smile. It became the greatest mystery in the land. Why does the princess never laugh? Was she cursed? People wondered. Her father, the king, and her mother, the queen, loved her dearly and grew worried. A heart that never laughs is like a rose that will never bloom, the king often said. The town crier blew his trumpet as he walked to the center of the village, the market square. All the villagers gathered around to hear what he had to say. Then with a strong voice, he announced, "Hear all, hear all. By the king's command, whoever can make the princess laugh shall have her hand in marriage, and will receive fine plots of land and the royal title." The villagers received the announcement with mixed feelings. Some were excited, while others already felt the weight of failure. To them, it seemed like an impossible mission. Over the years, diviners had been consulted, seers had tried their powers, and native doctors from far and near had offered their rituals and potions. Yet, nothing could make the princess laugh. Some villagers gave up the thought entirely, shaking their heads and saying, "It cannot be done. It is impossible." But others stayed hopeful, already dreaming and planning clever ways they might succeed where all others had failed. Word spread like wildfire. Princes arrived from distant lands with tricks, stories, and songs. Noblemen came with witty performance. Even magicians tried spells of wonder and illusions. But the princess only sat silently, her eyes calm, her lips unbent. Days turned into weeks, and the contest grew louder, more dramatic. Yet her face remained the same. One bright morning, Princess Urenna rode with her attendants through the bustling village market. Merchants called out their wares, children ran between stores, and laughter filled the air. The princess, as usual, remained serene, her face calm and unreadable. But then, something remarkable happened. In the middle of the market, a young boy who was called Somadina was struggling to tie a bundle of logs onto his wooden cart. The load was too heavy for him, and as he pulled at the rope with all his strength, the logs slipped loose. In an instant, the logs rolled wildly, scattering across the market, bumping into baskets, knocking over stores, and even startling a group of chickens. The chickens quacked and flapped madly, feathers and dust flying into the air. The villagers gasped at first, waiting for someone to shout in anger. But the sight of Somadina chasing after the rolling logs, tripping and stumbling as he tried to gather them, was so clumsy and funny. that the crowd burst into laughter, but quickly fell silent when they noticed the princess watching. Her eyes followed one log as it rolled across the ground, straight towards her horse. Before her guards could react, the log slipped under the horse's hooves. The startled animal reared slightly, and in her effort to steady herself, the princess lost her balance. She stumbled, and before anyone could catch her, she landed onto the dusty ground with a thud. The market froze. Everywhere went still. The villagers held their breath. The attendants gasped in horror. The guards reached for their staffs, expecting punishment for the boy. Somadina himself turned pale, trembling like a leaf in the wind. He thought his clumsiness had brought doom upon him and his family. But then, a sound no one had ever heard before broke the silence. The princess laughed. At first, it was a small chuckle, soft and sweet. Then it grew into a full, bubbling laughter, spilling out of her like music. She clutched her stomach, her cheeks flushed with joy, her eyes sparkling brighter than the sun. The market erupted in wonder. The maidens looked at each other in disbelief. The guards lowered their staffs in shock. The villagers dropped to their knees, amazed, for their princess, who had never laughed, was laughing freely, rolling with joy on the very ground with a heap of dust. Somadina stood frozen, wide-eyed, unable to believe that his clumsiness had unlocked the princess's laughter. When the king reached the market square, he was stunned by what he saw. His daughter, who had never once laughed since birth, was still shaking with uncontrollable laughter. Her cheeks glowed with joy as she tried between gaps to explain what had happened. Through her laughter, she pointed at the scattered logs and said, "Father, you should have seen it. The boy, the logs, they rolled everywhere, even under my horse." She burst into another fit of giggles, unable to finish her words. Tears welled up in the king's eyes as he looked at her. For years, he had prayed and searched for the cure to her silence. And now, at last, his daughter's laughter filled the air. With a voice full of emotion, he declared, "This boy, though poor, has given us a treasure greater than gold. He has brought laughter into my daughter's heart. From this day, his family shall know no more hunger nor want." The king's words echoed through the market square, and for a moment, the whole place was silent. Then, as the weight of his declaration sank in, the villagers erupted in cheers. Drums were beating, women jubilated, and children danced, turning the accident into a festival of joy. Somadina stood frozen, his small hands still clutching the rope he had been using to tie the logs. He could hardly believe his ears. Him, the poor boy who struggled daily to help his family sell firewood, the boy who many mocked for his clumsiness. Now he was the one who had done what no diviner, no medicine man, no jester could achieve. He had made the princess laugh. The princess, still wiping tears of joy from her eyes, looked at him with a smile so warm that Somadina's knees nearly gave way. For the first time in his life, he felt seen, not as a poor wood seller, but as someone who mattered. The king ordered that Somadina and his family be brought to the palace at once. As the royal guards lifted him onto a horse, the villagers followed, singing praises of the boy who turned misfortune into a miracle. Somadina's heart pounded. He hadn't set out to make the princess laugh or change his family's fate. He had only been struggling to tie his firewood. Yet here he was, carried like a hero, with destiny smiling upon him. Somadina's parents could hardly believe their fortune when the news reached them. They wept tears of joy as they were welcomed into the palace, no longer burdened by hunger or hardship. Their son's clumsy struggle with firewood had turned into a miracle that changed their lives forever. The king, true to his word, rewarded them richly. He granted Somadina's family fine plots of fertile land, bestowed a royal title upon his father, and presented them with a heavy bag of gold. From that day, Somadina was no longer just the poor boy from the village. He was treated like a son of the palace. The king welcomed him as part of the royal household, and the boy who had once struggled with a bundle of firewood became forever bound to the royal family. From that day, the princess was never the same. The laughter that had once seemed impossible now came easily. She smiled often, laughed freely, and brought light to everyone around her. The shadow of her silence was gone, replaced by joy that filled the palace. It wasn't long before Princess Urenna married a noble man of good character, one who loved her deeply and shared her laughter, and they lived happily ever after. And so the tale was told for generations. Sometimes what seems like a mistake can turn out to be the very thing that changes destiny. Truly, laughter is a medicine no riches can buy, and joy can be found in the most unexpected places.